Hello and welcome to The Insider, a show designed to clue you into the biggest news, events and announcements inside the video games industry, discussing with you some things you may know, some things you may not, and the glue that holds it all together is a little bit of my own opinion. My name is Paul James, thank you very much for watching, and let's get off the episode. And so the PC gaming space just got a lot more interesting. We've already got some competitors out there, the big one being Steam, we've got GOG and we've got Discord and we've got several others out there. But Epic, the developers of Fortnite, the Unreal Engine, Gears of War, Unreal Tournament and several other amazing games over the journey, well, they've entered the space now as well. Now this is not exactly new news, it emerged a couple of weeks ago, but with some news that surfaced over this past weekend, specifically around the Kinda Funny Games showcase, we learned a lot more about some games that are coming to that platform, and coupled with some news that we learned from this release from Epic, it's raised a lot of questions about the state of the PC gaming business, that platform, Steam, and several others, and we're going to talk all about it in this week's episode of The Insider. So let's firstly start by talking about the Steam situation, and we'll focus specifically on Steam because there was some controversy that surrounded them that Epic then piled in on. And at the end of the day, Steam are the biggest entity in the PC gaming landscape in terms of distribution and storefronts. So they have the most impact on everything that goes on within this business. Well, the industry standard, whether it's on Steam, GOG, PlayStation Network, Xbox, Nintendo, was that there was a 70-30 split shared between the developer / publisher, who got 70% of any profit, and 30% that went to Valve or PlayStation, whoever that platform holder happened to be. Well, just prior to the announcement of the Epic Game Store, which we're going to get to shortly, Valve announced that they were going to change things up a little bit. It was going to move to a 75-25 split, and that amount changed a little bit further depending on the amount of profit that the game made. So, if, for example, the game made between $10 and $50 million, then there'd be that 75-25 split that we just spoke about. If it exceeded that $50 million amount, well then all of a sudden we're talking about an 80-20% split. So things were looking a little bit better for the consumer, and of course the developers and publishers. But what Epic has announced far outweighs all of this, and we're going to talk about what they announced, what it means, what we're going to see from the platform, all beginning next. So as we've spoken about, we now have the Epic Game Store. It launches through the Epic Games launcher, as we know about from Fortnite and several others. There's now a store feature to that and allows us to access a whole bunch of games with more on the way. But the split, that profitability split that we were talking about in the last segment, is very different on the Epic Game Store. It's 88-12. That is a huge difference when you're thinking about profit per game sale. That 88-12 versus potentially 80-20 or 75-25 split is a massive amount of money coming into the publishers and developers. And we know that there are big developers, small developers, and they're all playing on the exact same, very level playing field. Now the rationale behind this is because Fortnite's making so much money that it's very easy for Epic to make a decision like this. Maybe that'll change in the future, but for certainly the foreseeable future, this 88-12 split is going to be fantastic. And that bodes really well for developers. And we're going to talk about some of those that are going to be looking after the platform shortly. But Tim Sweeney, the co-founder of Epic Games, spoke about how that 70-30 model, it's just not okay anymore. It needs to be changed. And Epic, as they've proven here, are making the first steps towards changing the face of what that distribution method looks like going forward. So game developers are really latching onto this new Epic Game Store, and courtesy of the Game Awards and the Kinda Funny Games showcase, both of which occurred last weekend, we've learned of several games and developers that are going to be featuring on that platform. So we've got Ashen, which launched on Xbox this week, but it's also on PC, and when it comes to PC, it's exclusive to the Epic Game Store. There is, of course, Team Meat and Super Meat Boy Forever that is coming early next year that is going to be on the Epic Games Store platform. We've got Hades, which comes from Supergiant. Supergiant are an incredible studio that are doing, the game is in early access at the moment, but it is available again exclusively on the Epic Games Store. We've seen Hello Neighbor, Hide and Seek. We're seeing, and obviously there's Fortnite. There's a whole bunch of games that are exclusive to this platform, and I'm curious to see what happens when the AAAs get involved further down the line. But this really bodes well for these developers in terms of profitability, and we're going to talk about how some of that can look next. So it's time to theorise and speculate a little bit about what all this means. Well, the first thought that I have is that we're going to see more of these games in the same mould of Hades and Team Meat and everything they're doing. We're going to see more of these announcements to come. And it makes a lot of sense. With an 88-12 split versus a 75 to 80, 15 to 20, 25 to 20% split there, there's more money to be made at Epic. Now, of course, the biggest market in the world is Steam, so they're not going to abandon it completely, and it's only a matter of time before these games come across, whatever the duration of their timed exclusivity ultimately ends up being. But it makes sense to go to Epic first, make as much money as possible from the early sales, and then get a second wind when you jump across to Steam. Yes, you're going to be forfeiting more money, but you've made more at the front, and you stand to, as a result, lose less down the line, which is great. Then there's the AAA side of things. There were no big AAA, Ubisoft or Bethesda or any of those sort of games being announced for the platform that are coming exclusively or any of that sort of deal. But imagine the impact when something like that does happen. And maybe it's Cyberpunk from CD Projekt Red. Maybe it is a Fallout game. Maybe it's, who knows what that game is going to be. But I'm curious to see what sort of impact that has on consumers when it finally happens. And it is only a matter of time because this money, this lure of more money is only you can only be so resistant. And good luck to any developer that decides, given this new landscape, to steer clear of the Epic Games Store, because it just doesn't make sense financially. And so that wraps up this episode of The Insider. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking, sharing and subscribing. All those buttons are down below here, and hit that notification bell. That way you're alerted to every new video the moment it goes live on the channel. That includes Patched, The Insider, Player 2 Plays, a late game review, Gamer School, and a whole lot more. There is some awesome content on the channel, so please be sure to go and check it out. For written content, please visit the website player2.net.au, where you'll find reviews, previews, opinion pieces, news, features, the Player 2 Writer's Draft, links to our podcast series, Dev Diary, and the Player 2 podcast, and a whole lot more. There is some awesome content there, so please be sure to go and check it out. We're also on Patreon, patreon.com/player2au, and consider kicking a few dollars. At the lower tiers, you get early access to episodes of this, Patched, and a whole lot more. And at the higher tiers, you get monthly episode exclusives and the ability to join us in the monthly Player 2 podcast. For rolling updates, you can find me at Paul James Games on Twitter, the website you'll find at Player2AU on Twitter, and until next time, that is the Epic Games Store versus Steam sort of rivalry that's now starting to build discussed. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.